This episode of RadCast Outdoors is brought to you by PK Lures, Bow Spider, and High Mountain Seasonings.
Fish on! Hey, RadCast is on!
Hunting, fishing, and everything in between. This is RadCast Outdoors. Here are David Merrill and Patrick Edwards.
Well, hello and everyone. Welcome, everyone. We're back at the Wyoming Bow Convention again for another episode. We're glad to be here. We've been going over policy and new stuff for the year and showing off trophies and hunting and checking out all the giveaway stuff. So if you guys are close or not close and you want to check out how we do some cool bow hunting out west, you need to come to Wyoming Bow Hunters Convention. So exciting stuff coming for next year. We've been hanging out and chatting, and we have Mr. Rick Parish back for eagle-eared listeners. They'll recognize him, and we're glad he's here with us.
Yeah, gentlemen, thanks for having me back. It's great to see you again. Too bad it's just once a year that we run into each other, but I do hear your voices on the podcast, so so that's great.
Yeah, and I will tell you, your episode was a hit. You know, I had people reaching out to me, hey, I want to talk to this guy about hunting, buffalo or bison, and, I want to talk to him about kudu. It's like, all right, cool. So it was definitely a hit.
Well, great. Yeah, I did actually have a couple people call me and that had drawn tags and asked a bunch of information, and I was willing to give them everything I knew and places to go because, bull buffalo's once in a lifetime, and if you draw a cow tag, it's you draw it and then you got to wait 5 years to put in again. So it was fun talking with those people. I got to relive my hunts over while I'm talking to them, and so that's always great.
Yeah.
Well, you have a quite the display wall out there this year, and explain how that system works a little bit for some of us.
Well, I tell people that, if you walk around in the woods long enough, you find some deaf, dumb, and blind animals. And, that's just not going over anymore after, being a member here for, the mid 80s. So, very fortunate, to be blessed with shooting a few nice animals this year. I got a nice whitetail, a nice mule deer in Wyoming. Drew an Iowa tag, which for those who have never put in for Iowa, it takes 3 to 5 preference points depending on what area you put in for. And of course with COVID, it seems like we got a lot more people out in the field, and that's good. But everyone talks about, it takes more points to get things. So, and then I grew up in South Dakota, so I have to go back there every year. I think this last season was 33 years in a row, and last season was my 51st bow hunting season. So,
Wow.
So I'm happy to tell you that I think I got at least 10 more in me. So, I did notice I was talking to some people, and, I try to stay in shape, do a lot of bike riding and other, skiing and other sports and stuff. But I noticed that COVID did tend to slow you down a little bit. Couldn't go to the gym as much and things of that nature. So I'm trying to get back into that shape that I felt I was in 3 years ago. And it's darn hard.
Yep.
So, you did ask me a question. I guess I should go back to that, David, instead of, I was fortunate, as I just had mentioned, I took a lot of deer. And one of the reasons why I really concentrated on deer this year, I live in Dayton, for those of you that, are listening in. And then I have a son that lives in Sheridan, so we put in for an elk area together, and we did not draw. I blame it on him. He blames it on me. And because it's a 50-50 draw. So,
It was one of you two.
So anyway, the general areas in that area don't start till the 15th. So I really concentrated on deer, and I was lucky enough to find a good little herd of mule deer that had a couple of exceptional bucks in it. There was one I watched for the whole month of August. And it was funny, I saw him for 9 days in a row coming out of this these hills and coming down to an alfalfa field. And so I had strategized how I was going to get him. And wouldn't you know it, 2 days before the season, never saw him again. But there were a couple other bucks in that group that I was going to be more than happy with. And so on the second night of the season, I had two come by me. The bigger one, of course, was about 80 yards out. The buck I did shoot, which is a Pope and Young buck, so you don't pass those up. He was drinking in the creek at 26 yards, and so I took him. What was really sort of interesting about it, as I was preparing to get ready for the shot on it, I felt something out of the corner of my left eye, I guess that's not I saw something out of the corner of my left eye, and here a mule deer doe was walking up right behind me. And so when I released that arrow, I bet you she was less than 5 yards from me, and I don't know how that occurred, that she didn't blow, but I think with my back to her, she was just curious what the heck that was standing there. So anyway, I was in some brush and stuff, so I was somewhat hidden, but I hunted that same area for whitetail, and I hunted for another, a week. I think I shot my whitetail buck on the 9th, and I never did see that buck again, but this buck, he was about 27 inches wide and had 3 stickers on one side and 2 on the other off of the G2, G3. So hopefully he made it through the season, but he must have realized, he just toyed with me for August, and then when September rolls around, he was gone. So
he gave you hope and then crushed it.
Yeah. Like a lot of animals do. I was out there standing by the pictures, and I was listening to a gentleman tell another guy he had a really cool picture of a coyote eating at his bear bait with the bear standing off to the side. And he said, yeah, never saw a bear at that bait for 3 weeks. He goes, opening day, 3 days in a row, that bear was there, and I got all these pictures, and then I go ahead and check the camera and never saw him again. So, yeah, it's why it's called hunting.
Those bears on those bait can be so fickle. They go from nocturnal to they're there to if they don't get something to eat, they're on somebody else's bait and they never come back.
Yeah, and and they got a great nose too, so they circle around and maybe one night they don't, and that's when they make the mistake and get lucky on them. But
one trick I've learned on them bear baiting barrels is drive your four-wheeler all the way to the barrel and feed it. Those bears will get accustomed to hearing a four-wheeler sound, and it's kind of like ringing a dinner bell. When you go to get dropped off as a hunter, have one of your buddies or your wife or whoever you could get drop you off on the four-wheeler, and you just climb up in the stand and have them pull away, and that bear thinks that it's feeding time. I'm going to come in there. Yeah,
that was a trick that I don't know if you ever, I can't remember the name of the book, but Paul Bruner from Montana, he was a big traditional hunter, and he wrote a couple books on whitetails, and he would have the farmer drive him out to his tree stands and drop him off because they were so used to that vehicle. And he said the minute the truck, was 200 yards away, the deer started moving underneath of his tree stand. So yeah, they get accustomed to that kind of stuff. So, but anyway, I'll go back to the whitetail that I shot. I had hunted this particular area the year before too, and shot a non-typical whitetail there that had a whole bunch of brow tines and stuff. I think it had 5 brow tines on one side and 4 on the other, so sort of a unique buck. And then this year there was 2 bucks that I had picked out that if either of them walked by me or whatever, because I was ground blind and tree stand hunting off of an alfalfa field there. And anyway, after a week of this deer several times getting close but not close enough, he made the mistake of coming by, and I shot him, and he proceeded to go out in the field, stand there, and then run and take off and go. About 200 yards away was a neighbor's fence, and go over the neighbor's fence. So, of course, I have to go knock on the neighbor's door and go. So 2 years in a row that happened to me, because on the other deer the previous year, I it ran out in the alfalfa field also, and then the neighbor's dog come over and just ran through the deer in the field. Didn't chase the deer, but when the rest of the deer ran out of the field, because I was back a little bit, it went over. So I'm getting to know the neighbor pretty good by having to go over and get a deer.
I'm back.
Yeah, I'm back. And he said I'd only be mad at you if you didn't recover it. So that works out. But maybe one of these days he might even let me hunt over there. But he's got a pretty young son-in-law, so I don't think so. But anyway, so that was pretty cool. And then I did go up elk hunting, and it was, I'd hunted it back in the 80s, but now we're talking, 30 years later, and getting to relearn. And I spent a lot of time walking around in the woods and had a great time. I mean, the weather was really nice, and I'd been hunting more of that open country down by Wheatland to get back in the forest, and not being able to see stuff and have to learn to use your other senses of hearing and stuff like that more than sight, because I'm an avid glasser. That's why I guess I love mule deer hunting so much, is glassing them up all the time. But yeah, it was something different, and I did, in my first 6 days that I hunted, I saw one 5-point bull, and then it was 2 days left in the season. I went up and got into a new area, and walked into it for, I don't know, probably 45 minutes. And there's a big cliff face there, and I was looking at it, and something moved underneath of it, and here there was an elk standing there. And I mean, he blended in perfect. It was been a lot of moisture. And next time I looked over there, because I was glassing other areas, it was a spike. Hell, there's 4 elk standing there, and I was like, where did they all come from? But so it was great that they appeared. Make a long story short, I sat there for a couple hours waiting, and they slowly worked my way and fed my way. And my one opportunity of the year, I was, I think, David, I was telling you yesterday, I ranged it, and it was right at 51 yards, and I practiced religiously out to 60, and could hit a softball at 60 pretty much every time. And I've shot enough big game animals that I don't usually get too rattled, but I had a Freudian error there, man. Pulled up, and what did I do is I bracketed that 50 and 60 yard pin, and that 50 yard pin was right on his back line, and that's exactly where that arrow hit. And then to add insult to injury, that elk ran out there about 70 yards and stood there, and I bet you he barked at me for 20 minutes because he didn't know what had happened. I did shave a little hair off of his back, and so gave him a little haircut, but there's a little snow on the ground, so I got to confirm everything, that it was just giving him a haircut, and the fact that he stood there so long, I got to watch him in the binoculars, but he had no idea where it came from, and he was just barking at the whole hillside there, wondering what the heck was up. But it was, it was, so yeah. So that was the first time I haven't shot an elk in a long time, but it was fun to get up, get into some new area, and really enjoy just learning a new area again. So
you talk about elk barking. This year, and a lot of people have the stigma that when an elk barks, it's over, right?
Yeah.
And I would say that's true for the lead cow elk of the herd. If she's barking, they all go, right?
Yeah.
But I had some satellite bulls barking at us this year, and they didn't quite know what we were, right? But they caught movement or whatever, and they hadn't got our wind yet. So I barked right back at them, my bugle tube, and then went to raking a tree and doing some stuff, and it actually calmed that satellite bull down, and we got back in on the herd. So, I wouldn't recommend that you do that all the time,
But yeah, if you think the gig's up, why not try something crazy,
We tried it, and it held his attention long enough. So.
Yeah. Well, yep. I mean, why not try different things, new tricks? I mean, there's some pretty wild stuff that happens out in the woods, and that's what makes it so fun, because it's not just the same, and it's not guaranteed, but yet, at the end of the day, you got to spend a whole day out in that, loving what you do, and that's great.
Yeah, you mentioned the farmer dropping you off in their truck, right? Those deer are used to that irrigation truck driving up and down that ditch every day, and you come driving down in your new diesel or whatever, they know the gig's up. So, that's one piece of advice I've heard before is get a ride out there in the farmer's old truck.
Yeah. Yep.
So, you've done a lot of different things in your time. You said, 51 years now of bow hunting.
Mm-hmm.
Well, David's going to go do something kind of new, and I kind of wanted to pick your brain on it because you spent some time in Africa, and David's going to go back and he's going to go after a Cape buffalo. So, what would be some things that you would tell David prior to his hunt to prepare, and maybe some things to think about while he's there?
So, David, where are you going, and how are you hunting it?
So I've booked a safari with Dries Visser in Limpopo province of South Africa. And they have, they've been doing bow hunts since the 80s. Dries Sr., now Dries Jr. has taken over the concession. And they have like 55,000 acres, I believe.
Okay.
And then they have access or leased and deeded another like 25,000. So it's a really big concession. Yes, it is high fence. I mean, for those people that are anti-high fence, but that's Africa. And anywhere that isn't high fence in Africa has poachers and lions. So, that's the way it is.
Yeah. That is how South Africa is. But I mean, most people just don't know how huge and expansive that, 55,000 acres and stuff is. So, those animals are born and, die there, and,
never even realize there is a fence.
Right. Yep. And, the only thing that gets through those things is the warthogs will get underneath those fences, and like dikers and steenbucks and stuff can go through.
And the fences are there to keep the lions from eating the cattle. And then the ranchers realized that the wild game was worth more than the cattle.
Yeah. I hunted in the Limpopo district the first time I went to Africa, and there was people out raking it was just red earth. And they'd rake it, and finally on about the second or third day I said, why are they out there raking? I thought it was just for aesthetics. No, it was to see if any of the leopards had come over the top in the baobab trees, and if there was a leopard in the compound, hiding behind a building or something like that, because I guess they're not too friendly when they're entrapped inside of the compound. So that sort of, wake you up a little bit.
Things you don't think about here when you go set your wall tent up elk hunting is, we need to watch out for a leopard or a lion dragging you out in the middle of the night. Yeah,
well, I guess it's no different than people putting up the electric fence for the grizzly bears in some of the areas too. Yeah, so, but so you are archery hunting it, and
I am archery hunting Cape buffalo spot and stock on the ground.
Oh, that's fantastic. That should just be an adrenaline rush of all adrenaline rushes. So
I'm hesitant. I get goosebumps every time I talk about it. I mean,
I've shot an eland. I've never shot anything of that size or has the bone mass. Other than when I shot my big buffalo on that story, and a 2-blade broadhead with as much weight that you can get that the arrow flies for the distances you want it to fly. And so, and they've really come out with some really great broadheads recently that are really, really strong. And so, shop around till you find something there. Patrick, you asked me my advice. I've never hunted Cape buffalo. I actually, when I was in the Limpopo area, and I also hunted over in the plains by Kimberley. They had some buffalo there too, so they came into the water holes when I was there, but I never hunted them. But I suppose, do they have a pound limit for you? Probably 70 minimum.
They want you to be pulling 70, and then arrows. They really want to see that 700 grain, but I've been playing around with the calculations, and what I'm going to do is maximize my momentum, and it looks like it's going to be about a 625 grain arrow. And then I've ordered 3 packs of single bevel, 2-blade broadheads.
Okay.
And all those I ordered in the 150 grains, and then I ordered some 50 grain
brass inserts.
So we're going to play around with which broadhead flies the best, and we can go up and down 50 grains with that arrow, and I'm going to stick a Luminok on the back of that shaft. So it's, and for people out there, my elk arrow or my plains game arrow or my mule deer arrow is about a 440 grain arrow, flying at 300 feet a second, 298. out of a 330 foot-pound a second bow at 70 pounds, right?
Yep.
So it's a pretty flat, but still, lots of kinetic energy. But what I'm doing is I'm actually taking and I'm maximizing my momentum. That bow isn't going to be any more efficient. If you were to go from a 620 grain arrow up to a 900 grain arrow, you're actually losing kinetic energy. You're increasing your arc, and you actually lose right at somewhere around that 700 grains. I start losing momentum. So, it's not hitting any harder. Now, there is some thought behind it that you could maybe front load that arrow a little bit and make a bad shot better, but I think maximizing that momentum is going to be key.
Not only that, but making sure it's flying straight, because if it's not flying straight, there's a loss of energy right there that you don't want. So I think I shot traditional for a long time, and I shot a couple moose and stuff with the traditional gear, and I only shot, I was only shooting, 58 pounds and the arrow's going 182 feet per second.
How many grain arrow?
435, 440, somewhere in there. And so when I jumped over to a compound, I was shooting pretty much the same arrow weight, shooting it at 270 feet per second. So I've had really good luck with pass-throughs on almost everything. Even at 50 yards on elk, I usually pass through. But I'm sort of a stickler on. I do not change equipment a lot. I was just laughing the other day. I've only had 2 different bows over the last 12 years, and it was Matthews Drenolin LD, and then I shoot a Prime Rival because I like longer axle to axles. I like bows that once you tune them, they stay tuned longer and stuff like that. And the biggest thing for me,
you could definitely get another bow that's hot roddy, right? But you got to tune it all the time.
Yeah, I like the peep angle too. But I mean, I'll tell you a quick story. I went to Namibia and I brought 2 bows, and I had set one up. They had a minimum 60 pounds, not Namibian law, but the camp I was at. And then they want you to do a proficiency test in front of them, and it's not hard. I mean, they just want to make sure that you can hit, something about the size of a paper plate at 20 yards, in all honesty. And, but we were shooting at little, 2-inch circles at 20 and 30 yards. And I shot both bows. And the guy goes, "Man, you shoot that black bow so much better." And that's the one I use all the time, but it's only set at 56 pounds. And so it was the owner of the thing, and they stay in blind with you in Namibia, and they film you and stuff. And went out that first day and shot 2 animals. And then the second day, big old eland comes in, and he weighed 2,080 pounds. And the reason why is they haul it out whole. They don't skin, or they don't gut anything in the field. And so they weighed it. But I mean, it just blew right through him. And you shoot him right, you go right up the leg in Africa. And I mean, it just zipped right through it. And he turned and looked at me and said, "How many pounds are you shooting?" And I said, "Well, I don't really want to tell you." And I said, "Because I'm breaking your own rules. It's a 56-pound bow." So again, it's that, it's that flight. So back to Patrick, you were saying, make sure that baby's flying straight, and I don't think you should have any problem, and have a great time,
So on that, like, what are some things that people would do prepping for a trip like that, whether it be a Cape Buffalo or anything else?
I mean, it's, so a trip to Africa is sort of interesting. I don't know how you're flying. If you're going to, how are you flying?
So we're going to take United Air, and we're flying out of the East Coast, and it's an 18-hour flight right into Joburg, right?
Oh, okay. Yeah. I know Atlanta used to have it. Are you Dulles or out of Washington then, or?
I think we're out of New York.
Oh, okay. It's been a little while, because in the beginning, the first 2 times I went to London and then down to Joburg, and
we had that option to go through Germany, and that's Frankfurt, but that's a total 22-hour deal, and the 18-hour direct is we get in their time in the evening, just in time to go to bed, and then they pick us up the next morning to take us out to the concession.
Wow. Yeah.
Hopefully get, because they're exactly 12 hours backwards of us. So they're going to bed when we're getting up, and we're getting to bed when so hopefully I can try and flip-flop a little bit.
Now, you've been to Africa before then, right?
I went in 2013 to Namibia, just plains game.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So I mean, my recommendation is always to bring a backup bow. I had a bow on my second trip that, I could have just replaced it, but I had a rest that went bad, a drop-away rest that stayed up. And so, just grab a second bow. So, and I'm just that kind of a guy that, if I go to wherever I go, I always have two bows that are identical. But you don't need many clothes when you go to Africa, as you're aware. They wash them for you and things of that nature. But I guess, I've never stalked and hunted Cape buffalo, Patrick, so I can't tell a whole lot other than just, listen to what your guide says and especially on something like that. But I've watched lots of, Ken Moody safaris over there. They do a lot of buffalo hunting too, and he sends out some little stuff on the bow site and stuff that you see, and it gets you all excited. I'd love to do it. I'd like to shoot one, because after shooting buffalo and I can't remember if I went to I think I've been to Newfoundland Canadian moose hunting since I talked to you guys last, or did I have? Yeah, I don't think I talked to you guys about that. It was a hunt where I was on a list if someone dropped out of one, and that was a lot of fun. So I've shot 4 moose, and I've shot that eland. So I've shot some rather larger game, but it gets in your blood. It's sort of cool to be able to take down big things with an arrow. So I'd like to do a Cape buffalo, but I don't know if that's in my future, but so I'm wishing you luck. So I'm going to live vicariously through you.
We have hired a cameraman, and we're going to put it on the YouTube channel. So if I get gored and trampled and thrown in the air and don't come back, you'll at least get to watch why.
Yeah.
Oh man.
I told him he shouldn't have taken that shot.
Yikers.
You heard it here, folks. I warned it.
Well, the bow's pretty well set and tuned, and I'm shooting, at least out to 60 yards with my elk arrows, right? So, but we're building the arrows now, and I'm leaving in a couple weeks, which is probably tighter
that's
time
soon.
Soon.
You got to be excited.
I am ready to go.
Yeah.
So.
Are you going to hunt anything else? Let's say you knock down a Cape buffalo in the first couple of days. How long are you there for?
7 days, and my brother and my father are both going with as kind of observers. They're going to hire their own PH and do plains game while I'm there doing the Cape buffalo. And so we're gonna have a good trip. We're gonna hang out and go get some critters. But yeah, I agonized over broadheads, and like I said, I finally just ordered 3 different companies, very reputable, and I'm not gonna give which names yet. You could go research your own broadheads, but I'm gonna just screw them on, shoot them, see which ones I like.
Yep. There's, like you say, there's been a real growth in that side, single bevel, very tough head. So most people are like, okay, it's that one, or that one. So
I have picked the shaft, and I'm going with the Gold Tip Kinetic Chaos 200 spine, and it's 11 grains an inch. It's a tough shaft. So. And we're going to do about a 3-inch vein, 3 fletch. We'll probably use the Q2I vein. So I've kind of got the arrow built, stick a Luminoc in the back.
Yeah. Have you done any research in the brass versus a steel insert?
I have not.
Yeah. I just don't know. Just off the top of my head, I was just thinking about that. What's stronger, on your insert, on that. So, but
it'll be interesting. And what I'm going to do
I've always had good luck with brass, but,
brass is going to take a little more abuse than steel will.
Yeah. So there you go.
It's going to be, it depends on the hardness of steel, and some of those broadheads have issues, but we're talking about the insert that's going behind it just to add some more front of center weight. And we could get into the science of this for months, right?
Oh, yeah. But if you get it flying good, stick with it and go and be confident.
That's your rule of thumb, right?
Yeah.
Stick with what works.
Yeah, that is. Most people go, you get a new bow this year. I'm like, well, the old one's been killing stuff. I don't know why I need to. The only one that asks me that a lot is my son, because he always gets my, when I change,
he gets your hand-me-downs, and he's like, hey, I want to do hand-me-down. That's the only reason you're getting pushed for a new bow.
Yeah, as a dad, both my sons, I've got two boys, and they both have the same shoe size, both wear the same pants. Well, the one's a little skinnier, but coats, ski boots, all that kind of stuff. It's always in danger if I come home and like, where's that? He goes, well, you got a new one. You didn't need the old one, So yeah, so campers, trailers, they all end up at one of them's place. So yeah.
Well, as a manufacturer, I would really, respect it if you would hand your old bow down with the bow spider to them, and then you can get a new bow spider with your new bow, right?
There you go.
That's my recommendation to everybody out there.
Sound advice.
It's kind of like the whole boat thing. Like, you have people, they worry about getting the new bow every year. Somebody has to have a new boat every year. It's like, well, the old boat caught them just fine. I don't need a new boat.
Yeah.
I think that's just kind of the thing in the industry, no matter if you're in the fishing or the hunting, that's just kind of the way it goes.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I was talking to you last night, Patrick, I had to get a new fly rod, but then that was just because of idiotic error and falling over my seat.
You did get a new boat too.
Yeah, I did get a new boat.
Rod.
And, I gave that boat to my wife for Christmas, and she said, I think that is not entirely mine. I said, well, well, are you going to row it? And she goes, yeah, I'll row it. And then we took her out, and she rows it. But she tires a lot quicker than she thought. So yeah, when we go on our fishing trips, it's 3/4 Kathy fishing and 1/4 Rick fishing. And I love it because the look on her face when she gets a big brown or rainbow on, because they're powerful, as you know. And she's holding on for dear life. My wife's, like 5'3", 130 pounds, and I know how my hand gets tired. I'm just sitting there laughing as she's just like, oh my God. Both hands on the rod, I'm like, get a hold of the reel too,
You got to keep him from taking line. And you were showing some pictures of some very nice browns.
Yeah. Been fortunate. It was funny when I was showing you the pictures. We went out one day on the Bighorn River, and we each only caught 5 fish, but they're all really nice fish. And I caught 5 browns, she caught 5 rainbows, and we were, fishing the same. It was just so weird that's how that went that day. But none of them were as big as the one that a couple that Patrick showed me. He showed some. He's got a little hidey hole there that he's really.
He hasn't even been sharing with me.
He's keeping that hidey hole close to the vest there. So yeah. So those were some beautiful browns he was showing me last night. So I don't blame him for keeping it close to the vest. But
although I would take you.
Okay. I know you said that last night.
He's going to blindfold you, but he will take you.
I probably will.
Spin you around in circles 3 times.
Make you leave your phone in your truck, and he'll drive you the long back way.
Deal.
You know how it is.
Yeah, I know. I know exactly. So, but yeah, best of luck over there. It's so fun. The biggest thing, since you've been there before, Patrick, you haven't been to Africa, is you would not think, it's an ingrained thing, and I may have mentioned this last time because we did talk about kudu and stuff, is the sky. You go out and you look at the stars and you're like, where's the Big Dipper? Where's Orion's belt? You are so ingrained from birth to know what the stars in the sky look like, and then it's totally different. That's one of the coolest things. And then since you went to Namibia, they had quite a few birds, but when you're up in the Limpopo, get an African bird book because there are so many birds there. So if you get your big bull early, when you get your big bull early, I'm giving you the positive vibes here.
There you go.
When you get your big bull, then you can go out and look at some of the birds and stuff like that. And like those sand grouse that come in and you'll just hear pop, 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 pop. They quit flying about 2 foot above the ground. They just plop into the sand, it's just, but yeah, so yeah, that's what the thing you got to enjoy. The food over there, the wines. It's if anyone ever has a chance to go, I just really recommend it. Go on a plains game hunt or whatever. But
it's not an elk hunt or a mule deer hunt here. It's not an antelope hunt. It's definitely, when you're on a safari, it's a different atmosphere and it's a different. The one thing I am going to pretty much insist on, last time I went, the trackers came out and the meat haul wagon came up and they loaded our critters up whole and off they went, and then the PH took us off somewhere else to go hunt something else, and I'd be like, no, I want to at least go back to the skinning shed and help drop it off. And because being a DIY wilderness elk guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
When the elk hits the ground, I know that's when the work is, right?
Yep.
And
do it while the adrenaline's going.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm vital in that whole process from field to table. And in Africa, that you're just not a key cog in that wheel, so to speak. And there was a little bit of a disconnect to come back and was like, so I am going to be like, well, at least we're going to see it back to the skinning shed, and then they can skin it and we'll go do something else.
Yep.
So,
yep.
But it's a trip. You can take your kids, you can take your wife, you can, take people who are non-hunters, and they can still have a really good time.
They can go birding. They can get that bird book and go look at birds.
Yeah. Well, I had a brother-in-law that did that the second time I went, but we went over by Kimberley, South Africa, which is more savanna with acacia trees and stuff. And it was cool, though, because there was giraffes running around, but totally different species. I wanted to go after a black wildebeest, and I really wanted a gemsbuck there. And I don't know if I said this last time, because I can't remember how much I talked about Africa last time, because we talked about bison a lot, but I wanted a gemsbuck more than anything. And so there was 4 of us. Everyone shot a gemsbuck. 2 guys shot 2 of them. I never even had an opportunity at one. It was so strange. I'd go to they'd have pictures. They'd come back at night and taunt me, especially my brother, because he wanted a great big black wildebeest, and I shot a monster. And it was what was funny. He'd hunted that blind for 2 days, and I went there and I shot this one. And then I don't wonder if he's forgiven me yet. But yeah, that's just the way it is. So finally, when I went to Namibia, I finally got a gemsbuck. So that because they're just so beautiful, I had them mounted. And
never judge a man till you walk, a mile in his shoes. You and I are both wearing some La Sportivas, so that's another thing I like about Rick Parish, right? But
there you
my
go.
first trip to Namibia, gemsbuck, oryx, and impala were both on the list, and and the guy I went with, he shot 2, and I didn't get one. Right? Now I got a really nice kudu, and wife got a zebra, and we got some warthogs. So once the Cape Buffalo is done, and we're going to get it done early and get it on film, then I'll switch over to Plains game. And I'm not going with a list. I'm just going to go enjoy sitting, hunting them. And, if while we're spot and stalking, well, that's why we're going in May, is it's kind of their rainy season, the wet season. So it should be quiet or soft or supple. We can sneak around a little better. And
cool.
So, if the opportunity, I spent way too much time in a blind the first time we were on the concession in 2013. Blind hunting is great. Don't get me wrong. I do it here for antelope, and I love it. And I advocate, if you're taking a kid or a new person, you can take them and go sit over a blind over a water hole, even rifle hunting. And, you're going to get that kid a 25, 30-yard shot on a doe antelope. And it's kind of a gimme. You can wait. I had somebody say this earlier, you can wait for that perfect body position shot. And if everything just isn't right, 15 minutes later, there's going to be another antelope, right? So that's what is neat about blind hunting. But, Patrick and I were talking earlier, I'm kind of like a Tasmanian devil. When you put me on a boat or a blind, I'm like fidgeting and twitching. And I need to be, I can brush blind hunt. Like, you talked about hitting the edge of an alfalfa field and kind of backing against the fence. I can, because I know I need to be still there, right? But don't just collar me and stick me in the corner and say, you're going to be, instead of a participant in nature, you're going to be an observer right now. And I like the participation piece.
Yeah. Well, I think that's why I like hunting so many different species, because it's from stalking to observation. Whitetails in the, in a tree stand and just watching the rut go crazy around you and stuff in November and all that, was fun. So that was a segue into because go back to the whitetail hunting you were talking about.
He drew an Iowa tag.
Yeah, drew an Iowa tag, my third one. The first 2 times, I'll be honest, when I went to Iowa, the first time I had done a lot of research, and I found through just friends and stuff, father and son who were just starting to outfit. They had, it was the second year of their outfitting business. The year before, they had 5 bow hunters in. I called every one of them. They killed a deer the first day.
Wow.
I was like, and nice deer, 140s to 165s. So I went there, and I I got a monster, grossed 183. And so my biggest whitetail ever. And then so started putting in preference points with my brother and me, and we went back, but he'd been discovered by some outdoor shows. And the second time I went, it just wasn't, they had, I guess I'd just say that I'm trying to be politically correct in that his attention wasn't on us when you have a prominent outdoor show, which I'm not going to mention, there in camp and stuff. And there was me and my brother and two other guys, and they'd come back and show what they were seeing that day, and I mean, I think I went the first 3 days and I saw a couple little bucks, and I really wanted my brother to get a nice buck, and he didn't. And so I was a little bit, I ended up shooting a decent deer, but my brother never got anything. And so I just sort of got a sour taste. So this time I did some more research, and I went into a zone that was by one of the really good zones, because I was a preference point short. And I went and I just made some contacts around and found a guy that I just paid a small trespass fee, and he had 3 parcels of ground to hunt on, and went and did it yourself. And that, I enjoyed that. The only problem was getting to the drainages and finding things, because all the corn was still up. And Iowa corn is like, I mean, my God, I needed a machete to get through that stuff. It was bad, and so, and then because the corn was still up, that's where a lot of the deer were. But I went in and set on each one. I went in and set a couple tree stands, and was like, first night I set, I never saw anything. The second day I set where 2 creeks come together, and there was some grassy area like out in front of me, and I saw a couple small bucks and some does that come right by me, and I was really worried about where I was at because of scent swirl and stuff like that. And then I went and that evening set one of my other stands, and I had 2 nice bucks come by me. The one was, I almost shot him. He had double brow tines and gnarly bases, and but he was probably only a 140 class. I was like, I told my wife I'm not leaving Iowa till I get a nice one, because I had the time. It's nice being retired. And anyway, so I let him pass, and then I set the next day in a spot that was supposed to be, the guy said, this is where I see all the deer and blah, blah, blah. And there was an old tree stand down the row from me where I put mine up, and sat there that morning and night, never saw a dang deer. So, so I was like, wow. So the next morning, or that evening, I went, I had to drive by where I'd set that first day, where 2 creeks come together, and there's a grass area, and there's like 50 yards to the corn, and lo and behold, there's a combine out there, and they'd probably did a fourth of the field. And I was like, well, great. So I went in there in the morning in the dark. Well, they had not done down where I was at. It was still standing corn down in that corner, and got in there, and right when you can see, it probably wasn't legal light yet, out of the corn comes a doe just running this nice buck right on her butt. And down in the creek, they went to my left, and I was like, how big was he? And because it just looked like he had a lot of mass and stuff. And then I could hear him messing around over there, and out of the about 30 minutes later, out comes that doe out, walking right out in front of me at about 25 yards, and the buck comes up right to the edge. And when I came in there, I had to come in on a dike. I don't know if you've been in the Iowa country much, and they got all of those erosion dikes in all their fields, and they're all undulating. Well, I didn't want to walk through the grass because that's where the deer were, so I walked on top of the dike, and they had come right over my scent stream earlier, but chasing like that, they probably didn't even. So I'd come out, and I'd just come in straight a 90 degree right to my tree stand, and because I figured if a deer's going to go across that grass, hit the scent stream, he's going to stop and smell it, I'm going to get a shot. And instead of cutting along the trees and leave a scent stream everywhere. But anyway, so he's hung up over there with a branch across his chest at about 30, and the doe's sitting smelling my scent stream, I said, oh, this is going to go south here. This can't work. And anyway, she jumps over the trail and starts walking, and he comes out and stops at probably about 26 yards now. And I shot, and he ran into the corn, and I saw a deer running into the timber in the corner, and I thought it was him. So I gave it about a half hour, got down, went up, couldn't find any blood where I'd shot, but where it went in the corn, I could see blood, and then I found about that much of my arrow. And so I went over to where it went into, so I was right along the edge, probably 80 yards from this fence line here, and it was a corner like this too. And that was someone else's property, the cornfield and the stuff all behind me. So in Iowa, if you lay your bow down, you can follow a wounded animal across. So I went in, I couldn't find anything. There was brush, so I turned around right away. When I came out, saw a coyote down the hill look up at me like this, and I just stood there, and then he went down, and I could see he was tearing on something. And sure enough, there's my deer just laying right down the hill 60 yards from where he came out of and I walked down there, and there was this massive, heavy 4x4, because I never looked at his rack again once that's just taboo not to do that. So that was pretty cool too. And he was a monster, weight-wise too. I'll have to show you a picture when we're off the air here it looks like he's got a doll's head on this, Hulk Hogan body, it's, yeah. So
those corn-fed Iowa deer put some weight on.
You wouldn't think
200-300 pounds.
Yeah, he was huge.
Yeah.
So, and you wouldn't think, I brought my back frame because I had to pack him out of there. So yeah, it was 3 trips, rear quarter and all the neck meat and stuff, another rear quarter in the head, and then the 2 fronts. So yeah, you wouldn't think that you need to backpack in Iowa, but it was, you could only park up by the grain bin up by the road, and then you had to hike way down into there. So I was glad I brought it. So he ended up scoring just under 160 as a 4-point, just real heavy. And you guys seen him out there.
He's a heavy, nice deer.
Very heavy deer.
Yeah.
You can send me pictures. We can put them in the show notes. That way people can kind of see what he looks like. And,
all right.
But yeah, that's a heck of a deer.
Yeah. So
super heavy.
Yep. I'll do that. And so, we got time to talk about the South Dakota one real quick?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. So I go to South Dakota every year. As I said earlier, I grew up there and stuff. So went back, and it's a farm that was right next to my grandpa's. My dad was a hired hand there. So lived right on that farm. And last year was my 33rd year in a row that I had been there. I'd hunted previous to that, but
It just
it's
all right.
I'm not used to this
Radio land.
this radio land
I know,
stuff.
right?
So that noise. So if that annoying noise in the background was caused by me, guys, tapping the table.
No,
so I
you're
apologize.
Good. You're good.
So didn't even realize I had a nervous tick like that. No. Anyway, so I know this ranch pretty good and stuff, and go back every year. I have a buddy from Rapid City that goes back with me. He's been hunting there 20 some years too. And so we always have a great time, have a lot of relatives back there and stuff. So I love going back to South Dakota, and I've taken some nice deer there and stuff, but I like to decoy there because it's a lot of open, so there's cornfields up above, and it's part of the Snake River, Missouri River breaks there. And so the deer go back into the hills and into the draws, and they feed at night. And so you can pattern them going up and down. You can pattern the does because the bucks, they're going all over, and they lock up, and then they're back and forth and stuff, because we usually hunt about the 8th through the 18th, something like that. And so they are in the lockdown period at times, but they break loose. And so it's both me and my buddy have shot good deer there. But I have this one tree that we call it the funnel draw, because it does funnel a lot of deer through there. And that's the only place that I'm mean enough that my buddy doesn't get to hunt there till after I kill a deer out of it. But he's got his own places too. So it's not like I'm that mean, but I set up a decoy there the first time, and I I was showing a picture to you guys last night where I had 2 different bucks and a doe standing there, and just the reaction of deer on a decoy is just so interesting.
And to highlight, I mean, it's a life-size deer decoy.
Yeah, it's
that you've hauled out and set right in front of the tree stand.
Yeah, it's carry light. I only had the buck up there, but I had a doe underneath of a cedar tree to the side there that I sometimes put a buck and a doe up, and so it just depends on my mood that day. So and I've killed probably 5 or 6 deer in that same spot off of a decoy right there. So it does work. That decoy has a fake leg on one side because of a buck that ran the decoy over. So, are they start humping it? The buck decoy, they'll hump a buck decoy. It's sort of a
it's a dominance thing.
Yeah,
but I mean, I used one this year as well for my first year in Missouri, and one of those carry light, carried it, and it's amazing the calming effect. And like, because I obviously my scent's all the way around that thing. I put it out there. I've got video like yours, and the deer come out and hung out for an hour around the decoy.
Yep.
Now they were all less dominant than the decoy I had, so they didn't really posture really well. But I wonder if that would work for an elk.
I had that butt decoy from Montana, and yes, my son has shot a bull off of that before, and when I was hunting open country, I call it flashing. You don't have to leave the decoy up.
Just let him see it.
Yeah. So if you're over the ridge, just lift it up a couple times, in that movement.
They think it's a couple elk going down a draw and just
they're
gotta come over there and see.
So if you're out hunting in that more open country, and then the one advice there though is get to the side, the downwind side, because that's where they're going to try to swing downwind. Plus, they may come in straight at it too, since they saw it and they're a little more relaxed. You don't want them coming over right on top of you. You need to be to the side to get the shot. So just a little bit there, but yeah. So anyway, I had that decoy up, and I was sitting there, and I had a doe come through and come over to it. Now, just as plain doe decoy, I have not had a lot of luck with. All the does are maternal groups, and they know everything. And if there's a weird doe in the neighborhood, they stomp and snort and blah, blah, blah. So now if you have a buck and a doe decoy up, I've never had much of that. But a plain buck, they're so used to different bucks coming from different areas that they pretty much, come up and either sniff it or just walk around it or whatever. So, but anyway, I sitting there, and I look over, and a doe's coming out from where the tree I'm at. I can't see up or down the draw. It's a big cottonwood. It's all cedar to my right and open to the left. And this doe comes out from below me because she's following the creek, and I can't see down that way because there's a lot of cedars in there. Comes out to the decoy, and she's smelling it, and all of a sudden I'm looking, and all of a sudden just this flash comes out, and here comes the buck I shot, comes running out, runs up to the decoy, and he stops. And so I look at it quick, and I said, oh, that's a nice one. Pull back, aim. Just as I shoot, he jumps back, and the arrow sticks. And he jumps again, and then he looks at the arrow, and the doe, all she did with the shot is she went up above the decoy, and she's looking down at it. So here's another beauty about a decoy. Was that the deer that did? So it gave me that second opportunity, so that that buck, he's just standing there. I hurry up in a frantic thing, put another arrow on, and then I shoot him. Well, the doe starts walking up the hill, and after I shot him, he just did like 2 crow hops and was standing there, and I'm like, that looked like a good shot. Well, because the doe's calm, because there's a decoy there, and unbeknownst to me, there's another buck trailing him. Now he shows up, and the doe starts going up the hill, so he tries to follow her up and goes about 10 yards and tips over. The other buck comes in and sniffs the nose of the buck decoy, goes over and sniffs the dead deer, and takes off with the doe up the hill, and I think he was waving thank you as he went over the top of the hill.
One less guy to fight, right?
Two less guys.
Yeah.
so yeah, and that was another really nice deer, just under 160. So yeah, so my buddy who I hunt with, I was like, that's pretty good. One year I shoot, a mule deer and 2 whitetails at, or in the upper 150s, and then I got a nice whitetail too that had some non-typical points in Wyoming, and he's like,
he's a great Wyoming buck. Yeah.
He's like, God. He goes, here you are, you shoot 3 in 1 year, and I've never shot a 150-inch deer. so yeah. He must be a saint that he keeps hunting with me. So, because I do give him a lot of grief too while we hunt. So
that's okay. That's what you're supposed to do on hunting and fishing trips.
Yeah,
lots of grief.
Yep.
Last minute moose trip.
Oh, yeah. I was at the Pope and Young banquet when in Omaha, and I know Neil Summers, and we went and had a beer and had some lunch, and we were talking, and he goes, Rick, what are you going to do? And, hunts in the future. And I said, I just love hunting moose. I said, and for those of, you out there that dream about an Alaskan Yukon, I couldn't save fast enough to go on one of those, and I'd been saving for quite a few years, and I got to $10,000 or $12,000, and then they went from $10,000 or $12,000. Now I think they're $24,000, $26,000 for an Alaskan Yukon moose, and I would love to get one. So, but I said, I'd like to go moose hunting again. And he goes, well, how much you want to spend? And I told him, and he said, well, Alberta or Newfoundland's the only thing that's left for you. And I said, well, if you have a cancellation hunt that's one of the good spots, I said, I don't want to shoot a paddle, but I want to shoot just a representative of the species. I'd like to get a Canadian moose. And so me and my wife, we were going on bikes. We were avid bicyclists, and we were sitting in Bozeman, Montana, heading to go to the Hiawatha Trail up in Montana, Idaho. Have you ever heard of that? And there's that big long tunnel that you go through and stuff. You got to have, and I get a call as we were eating lunch, and they gave me, they said, hey, we had this cancellation, and you go in on a helicopter in Newfoundland, and you need to get back. I said, well, can I talk to the outfitter? So I called him, and he answered, and so we talked a little bit, and my wife gave me the thumbs up, and so I said, okay, I'm going, and so I think that was in like August, and the hunt was in second week of October, and so flew up there, went into Deer Lake, and then outfitter picked you up and took you up there, and we did fly in on a helicopter. The second time I've ever been in a helicopter. They are cool. Have you guys been in a helicopter?
I'm supposed to in May. I'm supposed to get on a Blackhawk, so I can't wait for that, but I haven't yet.
It's just, the first time I ever went, I got to sit right up front with the pilot, and it's all glass bubble around you. You feel like you're floating inside of a big old bubble, so it was fun. So we flew out there, and oh my God, this guy he only gets 2 caribou tags, and back in the day, woodland caribou were like, what, $4,000 or $5,000. Now they're like, I think he had them, when I went, it was 11 or 12. And I think they're going up from there because, they shut down Quebec Labrador and blah, blah, blah. So caribou prices are going up too. So anyway, but went up and saw moose every day. Saw one gagger that, maybe 45, 50 incher. Mine is, I don't know, I think 38 and a half. He's got 7 points on the side. But yeah, stocked in on him. There was 2 bulls and a cow and a calf, and called in the little bull a couple times, and they got suspicious and went out even farther away from camp. And but one of the guys there had shot. So the guys in camp, me and another guy had a moose tag. One guy had a moose and a caribou, and the other guy in camp had a caribou, and he'd shot just a stud caribou. Both of them I measured. Both guys got their caribou, and they were both way up in Boone and Crockett.
And you're a certified measurer for Pope and Young.
Pope and Young, so yeah. So I got to measure, it's the same measuring system. In fact, the measuring book now is by both organizations. So it's just a single book. So I'm going to probably do the refresher course and become a Boone and Crockett measurer too. But anyway, so stocked in, and had a fairly long shot. It was 50 yards, but couldn't get any closer. The cow and calf, and they were all aware I had come around through the brush there. And first arrow was just perfect, hit right in the breadbasket, and he went a ways and bedded down. And I come around and put a finishing arrow in him and stuff. It is on the outfitter had a little Sony Handycam, and he put it on YouTube. So I mean, for those that may have said, "Oh, I've seen that," but but the country up there is just so cool. And I mean, I could have probably shot 4 or 5 woodland caribou. Oh my God, there were some nice ones there. I'd love to go back, but I can't afford that. A moose hunt was, 2/3 of the price of a caribou hunt. But great country, cool. Topography, we'd go across a big lake in the morning on a boat and then start hunting from there. So whenever you get to go and travel and see new places and stuff, it's just so much fun, and I just really enjoyed it. I wish I would have had a friend along, because that's always fun to share and stuff and then one of the cool things is the one gentleman, he shot a moose, and in the evening, and they come back, they could not find it, and so I went out in the morning with them, and the guide was doing something else and said he would come out, and one minute he was done with it, and so I took him out, and we went up there, and I was looking around, and I said this and that, and he showed me where it was, and I started crawling through this. There's a lot of thick brush there, sort of how pine trees are up real high, where they get just that low matted growth. So I was crawling under there and found a blood trail, and found it. What was sort of funny is a lot of them smoked cigarettes in Newfoundland, and there was a packet of the guide's cigarettes he had lost laying right next to some blood, and he couldn't find it that day, and so when he comes out there, he goes, when we went back to camp, we found the moose, and it was, when he was walking up, we said, yeah, it's over here, we got it, and he in the beginning, he thought I was bad, that I was saying I'm pretty good about blood trailing. He gave me an evil look that trying to look, and then once I found it and showed him the blood trail and showed him what to look for on the underside of stuff, I was I was readily accepted in camp, and so that was good. But I was so happy for the guy that he found his moose and stuff. And it fell down in a huge rock pile and was upside down, just in a glacial scree pile, So yeah, it was that was cool. But yeah, enjoyed it. I love just going and seeing new country and stuff, So
I bet that was cool.
It was, And Newfoundland is way out there. If you go straight south of Newfoundland, you're in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. Most people don't realize how far out Canada sticks that way.
And it's a big country, and that's
you
just look at the difference from South Dakota to North Dakota to Central Wyoming to Northeast Wyoming, right? And then you start adding in Russia and South Africa and Alaska, and I want to see all these places, right?
Yep.
And hunting the critters there is kind of secondary to just going and seeing where do they live, how do they interact on the landscape.
Yep. So, Patrick, I know how much you like to fish, and you like to hunt too. How many years you been married?
This will be 16.
Well, there's a 20, there's a 25. It took me to the 30th, but I would recommend New Zealand.
I want to go so bad.
I mean, the fishing, and then
that's the top place I want to go.
And then go in March and hunt red stags and that roar. I mean, I don't even know if we talked about red stags last time I was on, but oh man, they roar all day long, and it sounds more like a lion roaring than anything, and it's just absolutely unbelievable because they're just running around all day. I enjoyed that so much. Most people are like, God, this guy's hunted everywhere. Well, I put in a lot
of
what you
extra,
love. Yeah, well, I put a lot of extras. I had my regular job, and then I put in irrigation systems for years and years, and about every 3 years I could go do something. So that was a great agreement with my wife. Other than our 30th wedding anniversary, we got to spend into our regular savings on that because we were over there for 3 weeks and did everything she wanted to do. And then I said, we're in
If we're going to be in New Zealand in May, I gotta hunt.
And she understood, and it was great. So
it looks like the prettiest place on the planet. That's why I want to go so bad. It's just such a gorgeous place, and of course the fishing is phenomenal. But man, it's beautiful.
I looked in a lot of rivers. I didn't fish, but I looked in a lot of them, and like, oh, look at that pool. Mm-hmm. you know how trout fishermen are, like, oh, I know there's one in there.
Big brown trout over there.
Yeah. So
yeah, one of these days we went on our 10-year to Costa Rica, and we really enjoyed that. That was a lot of fun, and we did some fishing, and caught some tuna and stuff. But New Zealand's got to happen at some point.
Yep. Plus, they have some damn good wine there, too. Sorry about that. This is a PG one.
Yeah, I'm definitely going. I've had enough people that I know that have gone. They're just like, man, you've got to go, Patrick. You got to go.
Most people, what would you like to, Alaskan Yukon moose is number one that I would like to go after. But you know what, sort of as an exotic thing, the Cape buffalo is interesting. But I'd like to shoot one of those big water buffalo in Australia and then go after a Rusa stag. I think that would be a great hunt, too.
That would be interesting.
Yeah.
You'll have to let us know if you end up doing that.
Do you know anyone that needs a kidney? I guess they're $45,000 on a black market.
You're willing to give
that's
up
about
kidney?
the price of those two hunts together. So,
man, that would be cool, though.
Yeah. So
I'm excited for David. I think he's going to enjoy his trip.
Oh, yeah. There better be pictures and
video.
And yeah.
I want to see him put that arrow in it. That's going to be something else. I mean, talk about an adrenaline rush, man. That's going to be great.
There's even, I've been practicing, not extensively on my long range game as much, but I've really been focusing in on that 30-yard mark.
Which
just making sure that every day, cold bore shot, pull my bow out, make sure I'm center bag at 30, right? And I'll stretch it out to 40 and then stick a couple at 20. And I still can shoot 60 and 70 and if I want to, but I've really been focusing on that.
Yeah, because, your efficiency is going to be so good at that range for penetration and stuff.
That's a big animal.
And I'm not, if I have to take a follow-up at 40, I want to be capable and ready, but if we can only get into 40 and they spook, great. We'll stock until we can get into.
So, So have you seen one up close?
In person, no, never. I've been watching videos, and that was the one thing last time I wanted to do.
They're so impressive. So now I'm envious of you in that. That's a great thing. So best of luck on that.
It's so in the studio, and you'll have to see someday. We've got my wife's Shira. She shot in Pinedale, and then we've got my best bull elk, and then we've got my kudu. And so I've been looking. I'm like, well, there's a spot for a Cape buffalo right there, and that's.
So one of these days, when you come fishing with me, you'll have to come to the studio and check it out. And
I would love that, guys.
Check out Bow Spider HQ and all that. I think it would be fun. It'll be a good year for that. So.
Yeah. Did you guys post something on that not too long ago about the headquarters? I thought I saw that. So see, I do track you a little bit.
That's good.
So yeah. Well, hopefully, that I do make it over before next year that we get together again. But I also want to, thank you guys very much for coming to our event and adding to the overall event, and we appreciate that. And
we love it.
So,
a couple of the topics at Fish and Game, and we're not going to get into them, but they covered some EHD, they covered some CWD, we covered a little bit of wolves, mule deer, antelope. Some of the studies that bow hunter convention or Wyoming Bow Hunters has been funding. We've some of the mule deer stuff, and they're asking some good questions, and we've had some good seminars here about, so this is a great weekend. I really do look forward to this, and I'm excited, and the collaboration with all these agencies that are kind of here, right, and these different organizations.
Yep.
And there's just great folks here. Like, everybody that I meet is so passionate about wildlife and hunting and preserving that for the next generation. It's great.
Yeah. Lots of talk about conservation and stuff, and you guys have been here for a couple of years and seen where, what kinds of projects we fund with our commissioners tags and stuff, and really a lot of emphasis on youth and future bow hunting, and that was one of the things I talked about today. I've been sort of involved in some state land trade stuff, and I think that that we need to look at, we've been trading some state lands over the years, that there's been some good ones and there's been some bad ones. And I think we really need to look at those as we progress into the future and look at what, that we don't have any net loss of opportunities for people to go out and enjoy this great state of ours.
Absolutely. And this is a good weekend to get together for that and kind of have some canaries in the coal mine saying, hey, this is going on in our region. Is it going on in yours? And how's this policy working in your area? Do we need to... And some of the guys here that make some of those decisions are at least here and willing to listen, right?
Yep.
So this can be the grassroots for a land trade or for a feedlot issue or for a season issue or for a bow hunting specific or a hunting specific issue.
Yep, sure. Yep. So
yeah, it's great to see all the people that are brought together, and it's always fun to sit down and hear about your hunts and your stories, and yeah, it's a wonderful time.
Yeah.
So thanks for
appreciate it, guys.
Yeah, thanks for sitting down with us.
So before you run off, I'm going to give you one more sneak peek because we've already put it in the books. We have the cameraman recorded, and so I want to next year when we sit down and talk, go into Kodiak for 13 days with my dad and brother as well in August.
Wow.
So we've got a couple big trips planned.
I'm envious, but I'm proud of you because, you don't want to be, when you never know what's going to happen to your body or whatever, or things, so do it while you can. And that means going out and, I go down to our park in Dayton and go fishing if I have an hour. It means going out with your kids, whenever you get a chance. Just enjoy the outdoors. It's there, and don't take it for granted. Fight for it, and don't take your body for granted either. Go out there and do things while you can. All these trips and stuff I did because I wanted to do it. I didn't want to, my grandpa was a prime example. Farmer, worked his hiney off the whole time, and then when his body, he had to have double hip replacement stuff, the things he couldn't do anymore, and so he lived vicariously through me. And so David, I'm proud of you. Do it. Patrick, keep fishing every chance you get, and then hunting when you take a breather from fishing, go hunting.
I know the hunting eats into my fishing time, so I'm a little selfish about that.
Yeah, well, I love fly fishing too, so so it's great. So thank you guys.
Yeah, thanks, you. Rick. And again, everybody, if you want to hear more of RadCast, you can go to radcastoutdoors.com. You can look at last year's episode if you haven't heard it. If you just started with the podcast and you want to hear a good one on his huge bull bison from here in Wyoming, you can listen about that. And we talked about kudu and some other stuff. So you can go back and listen to that one. And I know a lot of people really enjoyed that. But you can always find more of our stuff on radcastoutdoors.com or your favorite platform.
And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and then give our sponsors some love. High Mountain Seasoning, PK Lure, and Bow Spider.
Yep, and right now at pklure.com, again, use PK Pro at checkout for 15% off. So until next time.